Still talking about me. Always talking. Who knows what they're saying?
Who is this?
Carol.
Why did you bring her?
Because Carol tells me when people are talking about me. What's that, Carol? You want to know if the doctor...
As I've explained to you, I'm not a doctor.
If the doctor... He's met Bryan. Do you see something, Carol?
Sometimes when you feel isolated and nobody accepts you, the only thing you can do is join an organization like this that makes you feel good.
Before we get into that, I'm curious. You're kind of everywhere. You're in LA, you're in Chicago, you're from Chicago originally. Yeah. What is your life like these days? And I'm imagining you're in New York sometimes. How much time are you in LA? How much time are you in Chicago, the Midwest? Like, where is George Wendt? Where do you go?
I do now. Since the lockdown, it's been largely at home. I did have one little trip to Florida, but right now, I might go to Ireland in the fall, but that's like not really a done deal. Yeah, I work in New York quite a bit because I do my share of theater.
I initially went to Los Angeles to strictly be an actor. I did not have the intent to be a writer-director, even though I had a past in newspapers. Much like you, my first job was at a newspaper. I spent about 5-6 years as a reporter for dailies and news weeklies. So kind of like an LA Times, but local here in Arizona, and also an LA Weekly, a version of that, like a New Times, also longer magazine style stories. So I did that before I went to LA to try and be an actor. So
how did you end up with Stuart a little bit?
Okay, so I was going to get into that. So here's how it happened. I first met Stuart Gordon in about 2001 or so. We have a mutual friend, and we were at this mutual friend's birthday party on the corner of, I can usually remember this, San Vicente and Beverly. And I remember this specifically because I was seated next to him. He was wearing like a corduroy sports coat, very distinctive. And he had, he has a very distinctive look. And so I'm just fascinated by this man who I'm sitting next to. And he said he's a filmmaker. This is I'm 23 years old at this point. I know nothing. I did not know who he was. And he said he's currently making a movie where, I remember this, Ron Livingston is eaten by a refrigerator. And so I know in the movie he gets killed by a refrigerator, but maybe he gets put in there. But I'll never forget him saying that to me. And I thought, this guy's got to be like a super sci-fi guy, because I'm just imagining in my mind's eyes a refrigerator eating the guy from Swingers. So so that's when I first met Stuart. Always dressed, he was a Chicago guy, but he was dressed like a guy who lived in the city, which in LA seemed a little out of place because LA is super casual. Yeah. So it looked very professional. Yeah. And he was obviously an extremely intelligent man. And so it was like a beautiful thing to get to know him, the little that I did. And right. so that's how we met. So Stuart was kind enough to vouch for me a little bit when I was making my first indie, which was a comedy, ironically heavily influenced by Fletch, as far as like a lot of the gags and some of the jokes in there. And you couldn't do it because at the time you had other commitments. I believe you're doing theater, but you graciously agreed to read the script. I have a very vivid memory of driving my Honda Civic to your house in Studio City. And personally, I met you then. This was about 2003 or 2004. Gave you the script. You were very kind. Did not have to be kind, but you were. I took it. You read it. You unfortunately passed. I totally got it. You had other commitments. And then we circled back a couple of years later when I made Bryan Loves You, and you were able to do it. And you said yes. And Stuart again opened the door in 2006, because you're not going to remember this kid. I gave you a script 2 years ago. Who cares? So Stuart again reached out and said, hey, will you give it a shot? And so I remember after getting you the script, this time I think it was PDF, because it was getting more into the electronic age. I don't think I handed you a hard copy like the first time in 03, 04. And I'll never forget this. I was at my mom's house in Gilbert on a cell phone call with you when you agreed to do it. And you read it and you knew the part. And you said, specifically, you said, hey, are you at all concerned about being confused with Life of Brian, Monty Python film? And at the time, I did not think of that at all. I had not seen it. I have since seen it. And I remember saying to you, like, oh, is that going to be a problem? I thought you were saying, I don't like the title because it's too similar. And my response to you was, hey, if it'll get you in the movie, I will change the title, which I would have done. But you weren't, that wasn't your angle. You were just, as a friend saying, hey, this might be confusing. So anyway, and that's how it came about. And at the time, I remember you had just come off King of the Ants. So the horror sites really, loved you and were writing about you anyway. And obviously you have the history with House. And so when we announced it, it was like kind of a big deal. I mean, how does this no budget indie by this guy who nobody's heard of get this actor? So if I can just get your take, if you have memories on like reading the script and what you thought, and were you just being nice?
Well, first of all, not to turn it into a Stuart Gordon tribute, album or conversations, but King of the Ants was came about in a funny way. I was doing a comedy pilot in the UK, and these guys wanted me to interview a writer, and they said that he didn't have any comedy scripts, but he's got this novel, and they gave me King of the Ants, Charlie Higgs, and I called Charlie Higgs and said, "This is amazing. Did anybody want to do a movie?" That says, "Yeah, everybody wants to do it, but nobody. I don't think anybody will really touch it." And I said, "I think I might know a guy." And of course, Stuart fell in love with it, and we spent a couple of years pitching it around town, and everyone said, "I loved it. I couldn't put it down, but we could never do this." So, and then I gave it to my wife, and she said, "You want to do this?" And I was like, "Well, I thought, it's Stuart." And she goes, "I don't know who you are anymore." And then Stuart goes, "Well, there's our pitch."
Right. So that could have been the tagline of the movie. I don't know who you are anymore.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I was real confused and intrigued by the script of Bryan Loves You. And I couldn't believe you actually pulled it off in that surveillance mode. And I have to confess, re-screening it, some of that handheld whipping around stuff, I'm old. I get car sick. I can't even play video games because so I actually had to break it down into the smaller screen instead of the wider screen, so that I didn't get like nauseous. That's not a good pitch.
Well, Tony actually says that at the beginning of the movie. He says, if you get nauseous, then look at your feet, which actually was inspired by Blair Witch. When I saw Blair Witch in the theater, the ushers said that. So I put it in my movie.
I completely forgot that. I thought it was more like for the content.
For both, disturbing content and, that as well, the way it was shown.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Anyway. So I still don't understand the movie.
There's my pitch.
But
star of movie. I have no idea what this is.
No. It's just it's mesmerizing and weirdly timely. All of a sudden, it's conspiracies. Yikes!
A surveillance state thriller right now, way more relevant than in 2008 when it came out. I mean, I made the movie the way I made it because to me, reality is scarier than fiction. And it was just a story I had in me. The reason why I did it that way is, a lot of people compared it to the Blair Witch Project because at the time, this was very close to when Blair Witch was very popular. And I was in a Blockbuster, true story. I was actually in a Blockbuster store, and I was renting it, I think on VHS. And I asked the guy who worked at Blockbuster something about the movie. And he said to me with a straight face, totally serious, "Wasn't that real? Wasn't that a real story?" And I'm like, are you messing with me? And he's like, I looked at him, he's totally serious. And I thought, that's genius. You can make a movie and people will believe that it's real. I mean, this is entertainment. So for all the people who were like sleuthing this movie and saying, this never happened. Well, no shit. I mean, it's entertainment. I'm not claiming this is a documentary. I'm not pitching it as a news story. I mean, I'm a former reporter. I get that. So I think when you're under the auspices of entertainment, you can probably get away with creating whatever world you want. Part of the reason, and also as a personal story for me, I mean, I originally from New York, grew up in Arizona I'm not religious, but as a young Jewish kid from New York in a very Christian-centric Mormon town. And, you just felt very ostracized. And not only that, but a lot of my peers were somewhat evangelical, and they would latently or just blatantly try and convert me to their belief system. And to me, that is just, I'm a 45-year-old man now. I'm an adult. And when I made this movie, I was more of a kid. The way I look at things is people are free to believe whatever they want. It's not really up to me to convert somebody to share my beliefs for some reason. Maybe it's egocentric, or you think you're, spreading a greater good. I don't know what it is, but it was just scary to me. So that's the movie. Not only that, but you're always being watched, which again, as you mentioned, these days, that's kind of the world we're in. Everybody has, I don't have my phone on me, but your phone, everybody is a filmmaker now. Everybody has a camera.
I know.
A couple of the things that you were in were some of my favorite films of the 80s and 90s. To this day, for the rest of my life, I will probably embrace 80s and 90s and maybe early 2000s content more than anything. That's what I watch. That's what I love. I love the sensibility. Fletch, to me, was one of my key memories of growing up in the 80s. Can you share any experiences you remember, like being on set? Because I've not heard you talk about that really in any interview.
It's mostly silly, but it was a thrill to work with Michael Ritchie, and he was rather dismayed at you ever heard of June gloom, the weather sort of trend
every year? Yeah, in Los Angeles.
Yeah. And that's specifically why we shot in June at the beach there, and which was just the Santa Monica Pier, I believe. And he could, the sun came up every day, just like thunder, is what Michael Ritchie said. And he was so bummed because we had to like shade everything to make it, because he wanted that grim sort of crappy look to the beach. He didn't want it to look like a Beach Boys kind of, or whatever the lifeguard movies are. I forget that series. Anyway, but Chevy is it was a lot of fun. The script was just an outline for Chevy, and he had this peculiar tick in rehearsing and rewriting. He asked me to rehearse our two-person scenes as if we were a couple of altacockers in there's my lovely wife. Just hey,
hello from Seth.
He wanted to pretend that we were taking dumps in adjoining stalls in a public restroom. And so to be like, well, listen, Sam, oh God, okay. Look, I don't really know what's going on here at the beach, but they're not. And I'd have to like rehearse my lines in the same manner. So that was a lot of fun.
Was that a recurring thing with him, or was that just like a one-off? He was inspired in the moment and he decided to do like a shit-taking take.
I don't know, because I did another movie with Chevy, and it wasn't. I don't recall it, so it probably was a one-off. But
I have not heard that story before, and I had no idea that the director wanted kind of more of a bluish To Live and Die in LA like backdrop to Fletch, even though he achieved it. But when you're watching, you just think it's incidental. That's what it looked like that day. You have no concept that was intentional.
They had those big, I don't even know what the film term is, but those big, like a sail would we'd practically take off. They had, the beach there for sandbags. So they
Right.
had plenty of sandbags, but they needed them. And yeah, he was shading everything. It was and messing with whatever the exposure.
Yeah. And all of your scenes were on the beach except for that one at the end when you're in the newsroom. Was it a jovial place? I mean,
Oh yeah. Michael Ritchie was he was a real prince of a guy. Rest in peace. And Harvard guy and sharp.
mm,
And it was fun to meet Dick Libertini, who I'd admired from Second City, and he had a double act called Stewed Prunes, which was hilarious with McIntyre Dixon. Anyway, I can go on and on about old Second City guys, but everyone remembers Dick Libertini, another rest in peace. God, getting old sucks. All these people. Stuart's gone.
yeah.
The
That
hell?
rest in peace as well. I mean, it's a shame. Just try and stay as healthy as you can and, clear mind, healthy bodies as much as you can. So speaking of the sketch element, another very influential sketch for me was the Superfans. And as you may remember, a couple of years ago, I did my own version of that for the local Arizona Cardinals team.
Hello.
What's that noise?
Popcorn. Getting ready to watch a video.
Really? Which one?
Bryan Loves You.
Is it any good?
Are you kidding? Cards Brought and Bob Swirsky from the Superfans be in the same scene. It's pretty epic.
I may have even sent you an episode.
I do. You did a great job with that. And it was
Right.
cool.
It was just a modern day, you see a lot of these guys on YouTube and just an over the top portrayal of that, just adult but lovable at the same time, just innocently ignorant kind of a guy.
And I have a buddy like that who's just such an outrageous Suns fan, and I think he was already smelling the championship when it went south, and I haven't talked to him since, but I don't have the heart to.
He hibernated after they lost. Well, okay, so interestingly that you bring up the Suns, I'm friends with their play-by-play guy who I go way back with. We were both in sports radio in the late 90s. And when I told him what I've always thought, and I've been following NBA most of my life, they need a big man. They need an established center who's gritty, or a power forward who will go low. They don't have that. They play small ball. When the Warriors were winning with small ball, they had Draymond Green, who was like the Charles Barkley. I hate to be the guy in Phoenix who says, guys, we're not ready. But you could see it coming. They're not strong enough close to the hoop.
Add that piece and get another year out of Chris Paul. That'd be great.
Chatting about the Superfans, you were able to work with some of the best comedic talent ever doing that. Was that a Second City thing? How did that come about and how did that evolve?
It's my understanding that it originated with this sketch show that arose out of the Second City workshops during the writers' strike. These guys from Conan, Conan himself and Robert Smigel, and actually Bob Odenkirk were doing a sketch show, and they had these characters in it. Then Odenkirk and Smigel were hired by SNL, and they kept pitching it for like 3-4 years, and nobody was interested. And Joe Mantegna did it, and Chicago Boy, and so I thought it was hilarious when I saw that. And then when I hosted a few months later, they asked me if I would be interested, and I said, "Yeah, that'd be fun." And of course, that was I think the Bulls' first championship. So, we rode that into the ground. Matter of fact, we're still doing the Superfans for this, that, and the other. Like charity or corporate or like even commercials. We
Do it as often as you can.
Yeah, we did it last year with Peyton Manning and Brett Favre, and then we did it a couple of years before that with Aaron Rodgers for State Farm. Yeah, it was
one of my very close friends and also my karate sensei is a huge Packer fan.
Aaron Rodgers. Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers, right? Yeah.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Yeah,
a lot of fun. So was Favre and Peyton Manning. Holy crap, that guy! He's funny. He really, really
Is he?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay. He
Yeah.
probably does the deadpan thing, and you're a deadpan guy, as am I. So we can probably appreciate that.
Yeah, he's sharp.
Yeah, it must help that the Bulls and the Bears are some of the most legendary teams in all of sports, and it's based in Chicago. Much like New York, I feel like certain settings have more interesting backdrops. And not only that, but like the Chicago dialect is also, to me, endlessly entertaining, and I love doing it. And whenever I hear somebody from Chicago, I can always pick it out. And they always say, like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "I don't know." Wild guess. So all of those things combined, you have some of the best talent in one of the best sports towns in the world, focusing on the best teams with one of the greatest dialects. In addition to the people that you mentioned, you had Mike Myers, Chris Farley.
Yeah.
I mean, home run all day with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope you continue.
I think, my favorite sketch was the Bob Swirsky's Quiz Masters, where it was kind of a Jeopardy thing, and the categories were Bulls, Bears, Dick, blah blah.
Jordan,
Yeah,
Bill Jackson.
yeah, and so the blow was like Bulls versus Bears. Bulls versus Bears. And Farley just about imploded. He couldn't. And finally, he comes out with this screed of, like, I wish I could do it justice, but it was long line. Such a conflagration could never, the universe could not, like matter versus antimatter, just, like that kind of thing. And that is correct.
It's a trick question.
You get 5 minutes in the cheese fry booth, and Farley goes in, he puts a bucket of cheese around his neck, and he starts grabbing French fries and dipping them in. It was just bonkers. But that was my favorite sketch. But the best moment was getting Michael Jordan into a grass skirt and coconut bra to do the bull stand. Stop, bull stop, bull stop, bull stop, bull stop, bull stop, bull stop. Anyway.
So how much shit did he give the producers for doing that? Or was he just like game and, just
he was
down to do whatever? Okay.
Game. He was having fun.
He seems like a very serious individual who takes himself very seriously. So normally you're not going to get into a hula skirt doing that, being that of that ilk. In Gung Ho, which was like another of my favorite movies from my childhood. And, incidentally, my wife, who's too shy to come on camera now, she's Japanese. My mother-in-law speaks only Japanese, so we communicate through my wife. I mean, you do comedy really well, but you also play scary pretty well. And I think you did in that movie.
Thanks. Yeah. Maybe I should have been having a little more fun, but yeah, I was the bad guy. And, I always, people say, have you ever played a heavy? And I said, well, yeah, it was sort of a Ron Howard heavy, but I was a heavy. And they go, what do you mean, Ron Howard heavy? I was like, it's sort of a Norman Rockwell heavy. It's like, it's not really, that heavy. And I didn't think I was that heavy, but
I wouldn't call you a bad guy necessarily. I think you were just like a union guy. You were tough. You wanted to make your wage. You wanted to, be treated as well as possible. Steel City work ethic. But it was intimidating.
Little xenophobic. And although, it was, I remember he's going to Japan, and I handed him a Zippo lighter. He's like, what's this? Don't eat any raw shit. I imagine, it seems pretty Neanderthal in this day and age. But I haven't seen it in ages. Although Getty Watanabe is still a pal. And I see Saab Shimono and now and then. And good guys, a lot of fun.
Some of the scenes are memorable. I think your, scuffle in the grocery store, Michael Keaton, is one of those. I love the line at the end, classic. The guy who says, like, I reckon he makes me laugh, and he hasn't smiled the entire movie. I mean, I think that's just such a beautiful line. Yeah. It goes to show you that people aren't always what they seem. You may never smile, but have a wonderful sense of humor. So
that guy was great.
Yeah, it's a very enlightening line, I think. I'm wondering how the Michael Jackson video came about. You had the role of the Lou Albano in the Cyndi Lauper video, or maybe the father in Twisted Sisters, I Want to Rock.
Yeah.
The guy was, what are you going to do with your life?
Yeah, it was great fun. And it just, I can't remember how it came about. I think they just asked and I said yes. And, I was thrilled to work with John Landis. And that guy has made me do
He
some
did.
shit.
I didn't realize he directed. I knew he did Thriller for obvious reasons. There's a million documentaries about that, but he also did that video as well.
He did. And, he shot me into outer space and I landed in Africa, I guess. And, it was like, it was fun. And Michael was, I can call him Michael, but Michael Jackson was just as sweet and nice and, engaging. I really expected something more mysterious. You ever see that SNL sketch where they did it a bunch of times where Prince would be played by I think Fred Armisen.
Yeah.
and he wouldn't speak. He would only
just that.
Only speak through Beyonce.
Just that. Yeah, right.
And so I half expected it, to be something like that. But he would, he put his arm around you. Hey, what's going on? And elbow you.
Michael Jackson did this.
Yeah, just like.
I thought he was like an introvert. I didn't realize he was so gregarious.
Well, he was on those days when I was, I was only there probably a couple of days, but, and, meeting my kids, really being super nice and it was really fun. And Landis, by the way, let me tell you, when it premiered on NBC right after Cheers or before Cheers, I can't remember. So
perfect for you. I mean, like that's
that's
core audience.
One of the reasons I got the offer, probably because it premiered worldwide, I think, at the same moment. And our director, Jim Burrows, he had 3 little girls at the time, and they were, young, like 5, 7, 9, maybe the 3 of them. And so if you recall, some of the dance moves were, a lot of crotch grabbing and stuff. And and now there's no boys in the Burrows household, no boy children. So it's just the girls. So at one point, one of the girls says to Jim Burrows, "Daddy, how come Michael Jackson holds his vagina all the time?"
Conversation I do not want to have.
But yeah. Anyway, Landis then he uses me in a Masters of Horror, maybe 10 years later or something, and I'm being tortured at the end of this piece, and they're sticking surgical instruments up my nose, and to torture me. And he said, "Now, if I hire an ear, nose, and throat surgeon to come here with a camera, would you be willing? Would you be willing to shoot that? Because we want to go up your nose, and I want to see your vocal cords screaming."
Yeah.
And I said, "Jesus, shoot me into space. Now you want to go up my nose?" And I said, "Okay, but on one condition: the final shooting script for that scene has to say, interior George Wendt."
That's funny. Did
it? I guess it did. Yeah.
Oh, that would be great to have in frame.
Yeah. Yeah. And boy, I got a lot of nose hair. It looked like the Amazon rainforest or something going.
You see it more in natural light. If you're ever in your car and you look at your rear view, that's when you see it. Like, oh man! If for some reason the interior is soft light, you don't notice it. When you get into real light and sunlight, whoo, gotta be careful with that as we age. Yeah.
Yeah.
So real quick, just to go back, I didn't even realize that Ron Howard directed Gung Ho, but he did, correct?
Yeah.
Did he produce it? He directed? Okay. Because I really like a lot of his movies from back during those decades. The Paper is one of my favorites, especially being a former newspaper reporter. I thought that captured it the best. So I was a production assistant on the first season of Arrested Development, which Ron Howard and his company produced. And I remember two things about the table read. The first time they did a table read, one was Ron Howard was there, and I really wanted to say something interesting to him. Looking back, I should have said I love The Paper, because I'm sure he doesn't get that very much. But the only thing I can muster was, it looks like it's going to be a good show. And he said to me, yeah, that's it. That's my Ron Howard story. I had one chance to talk to him in my Hollywood career, and that's what happened. So these days, are you just picking and choosing what you want to do? I mean, obviously you don't have to work, but you're an artist, so you want to. So how do you kind of select what you do these days professionally? And is there anything that you really want to do that you're working on developing?
Well, lockdown has changed everything. Like I haven't worked, I've only done it actually with Smigel. I've done a couple of his new series for Fox. Let's Be Real, I think is the title of it. But haven't really, and a couple of odd Zoom gigs. Yeah, I'm anxious to get back to work. And no, I don't have any, well, there's, like I said, this one thing there's a few things on the back burner that may come to the fore, and theater is just dead in the water, sadly, because I was about to open a thing in New York.
You yourself, do you write it all? I mean, is there anything that you want to bring production team and say, do this? I feel like most actors kind of have that thing.
No, I really should have concentrated more on that when I was younger, because it's something that everyone seems to do these days, especially people with similar backgrounds to me. Like, they pretty much create their own. Look, my nephew, he wrote Ted Lasso that he stars in. It's like,
Yeah, we watched the first season of that. We enjoyed it. He's done a lot of good work. I've liked him in quite a few sketches and films, and he reminds me a little bit of. So when I worked on Arrested Development, I had minimal contact with the cast because I was the lowest on crew, but you still get a feel for people. So he kind of reminds me of like a Jason Bateman guy who is at one of the top levels, but he's actually a decent person and a nice guy, which I feel is and knowing that I didn't realize he wrote that. That makes sense, because typically you write who you are or what you know or what's inside of you.
Anyway, so all these people, from Second City backgrounds are writing and creating their own stuff, but not me. Frankly, I got spoiled. Basically, I'm lazy, and and also, hypercritical of myself. So I go, I sit down to write something, then I go, what am I doing? I don't have anything to say, and that kind of, stupid.
You have to write what you feel. You just have to write. I mean, when you write what you're passionate about, and everybody has that. And that's the key.
The rule of thumb is you write from your left brain and rewrite write from your right brain and rewrite.
Right. Yeah, I get it. Like the more critical side is
like you don't just write and don't be editing yourself during that part of the process. And stuff later, but I'll start editing myself immediately and be self-conscious that everything is crap, and so the answer is no. But I also very spoiled by.
You've been around a lot of good writers and filmmakers.
Writing. Holy mother! I mean, I just walked into the sweetest situation with this murderer's row of veteran, decorated Hollywood comedy writers. So I got spoiled.
Well, you've had this career, and I mean, it's still going. You have a lot of time left. You've had this career where you've worked with some of the best across the board: TV, film, sports.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think, to me, my thinking now is like a grown up. And when I made Bryan, I was kind of a kid. I feel good people are rewarded. I feel if you're a good person, you're going to have a good life. And I mean, as we know, there unfortunately are some people in Hollywood who are not the best. But and I think it's more of an anomaly when you meet people such as yourself or Tony Todd, who was in the movie. I'm always happy for people like that when they get to have good experiences. And I mean, I wish good experiences for everybody, not to get too meta, but I think there's something to it. I think if you look at one's career and it's like, wow, you've had a ton of home runs, then there's something to that. Maybe that person is good to work with. Maybe they're a nice person that people want to be around, in addition to being talented.
Yeah, I should think behaving yourself, would pay off. I should think, but it's not always true. But
Right.
behave yourself nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, you're also a worker, as am I. I mean, if you, come prepared and you do your job well, then people will probably keep hiring you. And I imagine, we didn't talk about Cheers at all. I mean, you're definitely sick of doing it at this point, I'd imagine. But like everybody else, I enjoyed it and I loved it for many years. And that's got to be a grind. I mean, to do that many years of an episodic. I'm sure it was fun.
It was a breeze. It was a grind for the writers.
Yeah.
They would put in long hours, but we just sat there and laughed. What can I tell you?
Your deadpan was some of the best ever. Look across the world, across media, you see all kinds of people appreciating it. I don't think that's easy.
Yeah. What do they say? The duck, you can't see the legs churning. You just see this effortless gliding.
Right. But it's so when you look back on something like that, that is mostly fun. You don't seem to perceive it as being work necessarily.
Jack Nicholson, I like to quote a bunch of things about him, but one thing he said was, whenever actors say things like, I just hit my mark and tell the truth, that means they don't want to talk about their process.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what is your process? That's a good question. And don't say I just want to hit my mark and can't use that.
Back to the lazy actor thing. I think the polite way to put how lazy I am is to say that I'm a text-based actor. I don't I don't over research, because it's like, how do you act that? I don't know. I just try to make moment to moment work, and I only know what the character's supposed to know. I don't, I haven't found it productive for me to research exhaustively or to, pull a Daniel Day-Lewis, and God bless. I mean, geez, the dedication. I'm just not that dedicated, I guess.
Maybe it's just more effortless.
The actor, right?
Right. Yeah. It depends on the person and their process. I mean, you probably just like to feel it and go with it. For some people, I'm probably the same. If you overthink it, it's not going to work. It's going to come out stilted.
Yeah. I don't know. You just can't, you can't do two things at once in a way.
Since this is going to be on a horror DVD, although it's really a psychological thriller, but the business side calls it a horror. What would you say are probably some of your favorite either scary / horror movies, either that you've seen as an audience member or maybe something you've been in, like something that really creeps you out or scares you?
I think supernatural stuff like The Exorcist, I'm sure on everybody's. And you mentioned Friedkin, and he did a great job. Of course, the novel was fantastic as well. And what's the other one based on The Wages of Fear? The other Friedkin, Sorcerer.
Okay.
It's just a great. It's not really horror. It's just like insane action. But Friedkin's good at that.
Exorcist, it's so scary. I've not to this day watched it all the way through. I'll watch bits and pieces. I probably can't sit and watch it start to finish. I probably never will. It's too scary.
The Omen, even though it seemed like The Exorcist light or something, it was pretty scary. You know, um, horrors of Dracula,
Hmm.
or the horror of Dracula. I'm not sure. I think it was the first Christopher Lee.
Okay.
That scared the pants off me. I was probably about 10, and it freaked me out that you couldn't see vampires in the mirror because, like, I'd be brushing my teeth at bedtime, and I'd have to, I couldn't. Uh, I was scared, and anytime there was a window open, oh man.
I totally understand somebody being afraid of subtlety. So I'll give you two of my scariest ever. One, by far, E.T. E.T. scared the shit out of me. And I have very vivid memories of not being able to. Part of it was that voice. Like, voices scare me, sounds scare me. And my father trying to placate me, opening the door and saying, "Look, it's not real. Hey, E.T., come in here." And I was like at the top of the stairs. "No, don't do it. Don't summon it." I really, truly believe this was a thing. This was real.
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
But I don't know if you saw Duel, which was, like, I think his first film, or I think that was a short. But I mean, that is about a crazy faceless truck driver pursuing somebody on the road. This hapless person in a sedan. He does scary really well. Evil force coming towards you and trying to get you, which is, again, what I tried to achieve with Bryan Loves You, as far as, like, you don't quite understand the motivation. You just know it's bad and you're in danger. And it's not really revealed, oh, there's a monster with an axe. There it is. No, that's not scary to me.
Bryan
Right?
Loves You is Bryan Loves You is a truly unsettling, kind of, just, you can't put your finger on why you're freaked out or why you're nervous as hell. Not you, the viewer. It's quite a piece. Well done.
Oh, well, thank you. That means quite a bit coming from you. And the last thing I'll leave you with is my second scariest movie of all time. This is, like, under the radar. You probably will not remember this, but Alice in Wonderland. And there are elements of that in Bryan Loves You. And I mean, research Lewis Carroll, and I'm sure a lot of scary stories there. But they did CBS did a television version of that movie and it featured, like, the Jabberwocky. This is in the 80s, and all the kids in class in the 80s were talking about this, but it was just creepy. So this little girl is in this arena, and these two horses are fighting, trying to hurt each other. And then they have this looking glass cake, and they bring it out for her. They present her with this cake, and the horse says, "Go ahead, cut it." And then she tries to cut it, and it doesn't work. And then he gets really mad, and he says, "You don't know how to cut looking glass cake. First you serve it, and then you cut it." And I'm just like, what is that? That is so confusing. Yeah. That makes no sense. And as a child, and there's an adult angry at you for not understanding that nonsensical protocol, that stuff is scary. So if you ever come across that 80s TV version, I think it was CBS, could have been one of the other major networks.
I did that piece whenever, I don't know when it was, probably around 2000. It was really bizarre. Of course it's bizarre. It's Alice in Wonderland. But I was Tweedledum or Tweedledee. I can never remember. And Robbie Coltrane was my brother, my twin brother. So that was, and Marty Short was the Mad Hatter. And Peter Ustinov, how cool is that? Was the Walrus. It was great.
You can really sink your teeth into those roles. I can see why good actors want them. You can have so much fun with it because they're so out there. It's like a cartoon character, basically. How often do you get to play that?
Yeah. Well, Marty does it every day, Marty Short. But
he's like one of my favorites of all time. Absolutely. Inner Space, for example, was like one of the funniest performances I've seen. For me to be able to work with you and others who I grew up, watching and living vicariously through and who entertain me, like, that's what I want to do, is give back to others who watch those experiences, truly cherish and value that. And I hope that as I create moving forward, whatever that may be, that others get to experience that as well and can prop you up and make you feel good when maybe life cannot. So I appreciate all that you do and did for my movie as well.
Well, apart from the filmmaking, the writing and the directing, your acting was fabulous in that movie.
Oh, thank you. That means quite a bit. to get any compliments from people who I think are some of the best, it means a lot. So
Cool.
thank you very much.